Hey everyone, it's Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs. Hit that subscribe button. I got more tutorials coming up. For now, this is the countertop set I created, but before I created that, we've got to get to some sample boards. So let's get at it and let's create some sample boards. So with the colors I went with on this were a Luminite white dye. I went with a pearl gold, luster white, which is a color obsession color, and also a silver pearl sparkle. So what I'm doing here, again, I've got two sample boards, so I'm going to do these just a little bit differently. There's that pearl gold you can see in that one. I'm getting the colors poured out, and I'm pouring the colors out, as you can see, very randomly. But when I meld those colors together, I'm going to meld those out a little bit differently. So the sample board on the right, when I meld those colors, I'm just going to kind of meld those in a random fashion. And I'm doing this because I'm going to be running some veins a little later on here in the video. And when I run those veins, I want to see how those veins are going to look, where one of them is melded in a kind of random fashion, and the other one melded in more of a flow, or kind of a striated, if you will, but more directional. So here what I'm doing is, you can see, always take care of those edges, get those edges rubbed out. And I'm getting that one melded out, taking care of any little bits of surface tension. And then on the one next to it, this one here, you can see I'm melding this one a little bit differently. You can also tell that I'm not mixing those colors. I'm using my hand very, very lightly as I go across the top, because I really don't want to mix the colors. I'm really just trying to fill up that dead space and make sure that the entire surface is covered with epoxy. Once I get the surface completely covered, then I'm just going to take my heat torch. As we know, we got to pop those bubbles, take care of any little bits of surface tension that I've got in there. And now it's time to run some veins, and I'm going to do this two different ways. I'm going to be using spray paint directly on the surface, and I'm going to spray, I have charcoal, which is, they're both Rust-Oleum spray paints, charcoal and then also smoke gray, because I wanted to get two different colors and two different shades of that charcoal. So I'm going to spray the spray paint directly onto the surface, and try to do that somewhat methodically. You got to try to decide, where am I going to want those veins. You got to be careful on a sample board. If you spray too much, then it's going to look too busy. If you don't spray enough, then it's not going to look like enough. So as you can see, not real heavy, but I'm just getting those colors sprayed onto the surface. And the picture you saw just a minute ago was a bondo spreader that I just used a scissors, and I cut some notches in there. And so what I did there was, after spraying the paint down, I just ran my notched bondo spreader across there. And you can also do that with a stir stick or a popsicle stick. I just like the way that bondo spreader kind of spreads those colors out. And then what's really important with this technique is taking your heat gun and just softening those colors up. So you can see I'm coming straight down. I really don't want to move those too much left to right. I just want to soften up those lines and make them look a little bit more natural. And so that's what I did on that, get those softened up. Now I'm going to move to the other sample board. Basically, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm using those same colors, and then I'm going to take my bondo spreader, and I'm just going to kind of feather those out, I guess, if you will. Then there's the bondo spreader, and just taking that across there. And then I'm going to take my heat gun, and that's why they call it painting with air. And I'm going to take that heat gun again, as you can see here. I'm just going over the top. Again, I don't want to move those around a lot. I'm just trying to open those up and soften those up a little bit. And then as the epoxy starts to set in about the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, you'll be able to see how those really soften up and really, really look organic and look natural. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating some veins, and here I'm using Rust-Oleum spray paint, and I'm spraying it directly on the stick, and then I'm putting those on. And the colors that I'm using are champagne bronze, black, khaki, and oil rubbed bronze. And I'm just rubbing those colors, taking those colors, I guess, and spraying those on my stir stick, and then I'm working that into the epoxy. Once I get that worked into the epoxy, once again, I'm going to grab my heat gun and painting with air. That's what it's going to look like. So that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what that heat gun does. It really just opens those up and moves those around a little bit to make them look more organic and more natural. Again, that's how it's going to look at the end when it's done, and you can see how all the colors have softened up and all the spray paints that were on there have softened up and look a lot more natural. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other sample. I'm using the exact same colors and just putting some veins in, and you just kind of have to stand back and take a look and decide where you want those veins. Do you want them running along with the other ones that you put in there? Do you want them more in some open spaces? And I kind of did a little bit of both. Now here what I did was this customer wanted a little bit of bling. So to include a little bit of bling, I have some of the oyster satin, I have some shooting star, and I have some abalone shell. And the reason I'm pouring those out basically after I get done, is because I want that bling, I want to remain on the surface. And really, there's not much left and not much else to this type of technique, but it really, really turns out nice and gives a really, really cool look. So here's the sample boards when I got them done. That's what I showed to the customer. Absolutely fell in love with it. And so off to the countertops we went. Thanks everybody for watching. And once again, please subscribe. This is Keith with KCDC Designs. Thank y'all.